And Chuck is here. Welcome to the February 22nd, 2015-16 Downtown Design Review Committee meeting. This is a special meeting because we did not have quorum on Thursday last week. And it is Rand Elliott's birthday, so we're very happy to have the meeting on our distinguished guest birthday. First order of business, please turn off your cell phones, pagers, whatever. And we need approval of the minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
Okay. And you know what? I messed up. Roll call. Trying to be in a hurry.
Betsy Brunstetter.
Present.
Gigi Faulkner.
Present.
Charles Ainsworth. Present. Corey Bates. Present. Connie Scothorn. Richard Tannenbaum.
Present.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Approval of minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We have one case that's being withdrawn. We have no continuance request.
We have one.
Okay, we have one continuance request.
Yeah, case item 6A, the 15-000005. It's a revision to the Santa Fe Depot project. We asked it to be continued to March 17th.
Okay, do we have a motion to continue this item?
Move to continue the item. Second.
All in favor? Any opposed? You're continued. Okay, consent docket. Any questions on this? Any comments, Laura? No comments? It is 2 sculptures for the Catholic Charities. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
That was Ainsworth and Tannenbaum, all in. Yeah. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, cases for individual consideration. 524 Northwest 8th Street. Is the applicant present? Hi.
How's it going?
Good morning. The staff will tell us about your project real quickly.
Yes, about 5-6 months ago, I bought about a 12-unit apartment complex.
Oh, pardon me, yeah.
Oh,
could
excuse
you?
me, Cheyenne Keppel
Okay.
with 524
And
Northwest 8th.
Let's let Laura talk about your project real quick, and then we'll have you talk about it.
Yes,
okay?
ma'am.
Thanks.
Good morning. Several months ago, staff issued our original approval for a partial demolition on this building that had been there for quite some time and had a lot of additions on it, and the garage building had a lot of additions. During that work, the owner, Cheyenne, discovered that it was in a lot worse shape than they thought. So we issued subsequent approval to totally demolish the garage. And then he continued to work through his project. It's before you today because the original structure, and let me get to that one. This is from the property appraiser's website. As you can see, it was a traditional building, but you can see all of the additions that it had, and I'm sure it probably had a little wraparound porch originally, and obviously more windows on the front. You can kind of see the garage building in the back. And it's before you because the final version he subsequently submitted for the reconstruction was in keeping with the type of buildings we were wanting to see in that area, but looked totally different than the existing. And in the staff report, you can see that in our guidelines, we talk about retaining features of structures and retaining structures. However, staff also pointed out that we also acknowledge this type of structure. This is in keeping with the structure that's immediately behind it. And the owner for that building is actually here today, with the more angular, modern-looking structures, which is The building design should promote architectural diversity, which this does, while encouraging design that relates to and reinforces the overall character of the immediate surroundings, and this new style is going to do that, creating a strong building-to-pedestrian relationship and supporting a strong urban environment. So we had to bring this to you because it wasn't in keeping with one guideline, but staff really felt it was keeping with this other one. And because of that, staff is recommending approval of this proposal. What you can see, the lower right-hand corner is the building that's immediately behind it across the alley, and the owner is here. He was here recently when we were discussing the demolition of the small apartment building there on Walker and 7th Street. Although you can see in the upper left corner, the apartment building, that in much older structure, not some of the modern architecture that we're seeing, but there's also empty lots. And a lot of construction going on in that area, and the residential is going in similar to the one in the lower right-hand corner. And it's just the drawings. These are examples that were submitted for color and style and everything. So let me get back to what it looks like now. And if you have any questions, or if you've been by and have seen it, or
Okay. And would you like to add anything to that?
She covered it all.
Okay. One thing I would like to do in the future is to have drawings that have better quality, because this is a little hard to read.
Yes.
But I feel like this is in keeping. Any comments from the committee? Would you like to come forward and speak on this? You don't have to. It's okay. Okay, great. That's fine. The neighbor spoke in affirmative that he approves of what's going on. Any questions from anyone else in the audience? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve. Second.
Tannenbaum and Faulkner. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you for being here, and continue. That's going to be
Thank you.
exciting.
Thanks a lot.
And our next item is 1224 North Chartel. Could you come forward, state your name, and then we'll have Laura mention what's
My
going
name
on.
is Sterling Kreider. I'm the owner of 1224 North Chartel.
Good morning. I met recently with Mr. Kreider. They had purchased this building, which was a former house. There are 3 houses in a row on Chartel that are all individually listed on the National Register. And he's in the process of remodeling the inside to put his business in there. The issue that came up, and you can see where I've pointed out, is the sign that was right here. He got a little anxious, and so it is not there anymore. I do have pictures of it, and you can see where it was located here with a little planter around it. That's actually located in the right-of-way. It is not on the property. And that is why this is here before you today, because he's actually has to get a variance from the Board of Adjustment to locate the sign. Even though it was there, it's a totally different sign. They weren't just putting a new face on it. And you can see we have a very tall office building, medical office building across the street. Next door is, and I didn't realize it was there, but it's a bed and breakfast, so of course I had to read about it, which was fascinating to read about it since it was actually physically moved there from where it originally was built. And then up this, we have west of the subject site, used to be an apartment building, and now it's a medical office building. And We have, let me get to the sign that's proposed. As you can see here where the sidewalk is and where the sign was located and where they want to put the new one, and as compares to where the property line is. So there is some distance between the sidewalk and the property line, where typically you're used to seeing the property line almost synonymous with the backside of the sidewalk. And this is the proposed sign, definitely more modern than the one that had been there, which was 2 4x4 posts sticking up with wood. And this is much smaller, lower to the ground. As I indicated in the staff report, he's not showing the required landscaping, which is required around the base, even though there's a planter on the top. And I indicated in the staff report the types of landscaping that would meet the landscape requirement, and I've mentioned that to him. And this is what he's proposing to do.
Okay?
And it's metal and around the brick, and the brick is in keeping with the house/office.
Okay. Mr. Kreider?
Yeah, she covered it. Basically, if we wanted to keep it out of the right-of-way, it would force the sign to have to be turned and really just be west-facing, and we want a sign like the other sign that people driving north and south on Chartel can see from both ways, just for higher visibility. So we're just trying to keep it in the same place it was.
Okay. Any questions or comments from,
No, sir, no.
okay, any other?
Just to clarify, the extension of the metal towards the sidewalk, how far does that extend relative to the edge of the sidewalk?
How close does it get to the sidewalk? That's a good question.
Okay.
Are you concerned about that being a hazard?
Yeah, just, if it currently is designed to meet the edge of the sidewalk, I would make the suggestion to pull that off slightly, just to allow for a little buffer with the sidewalk. So that
Sure. And I don't know why we couldn't just move the entire structure back 2 feet or towards the house. Either way, it's still in the right of way. But I can't tell if the drawings, can you?
No, I was just looking. The only thing I can tell from the drawings is the metal actually extends 2 feet beyond the brick, but there's no dimension included that shows me how far the brick is from the sidewalk. So if that is, I think that would have to be part of your
Motion.
The specific location would have to be included in your motion, yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And then just one other question. There's currently I believe a gray construction sign on the property. Is that who's remodeling the house?
Let me see.
There's a there's a construction sign out in front of the house.
That's temporary, right?
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
I just wondered.
Yeah, it's just the interior remodelers of the
Okay.
house. Absolutely.
Okay, that must have gone up after I
It just
took
went
the
up-
pictures.
It
Okay.
just went up last week.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, any other comments? We have several things to include in this motion. We need to talk about the landscaping and a variance. Can we do that all in one motion? Variance and the rest of it, or is it preferred to do separate? Okay.
As well as the location, if you, okay.
I move to approve the application on the basis that the project complies with the regulations and guidelines of the Downtown Design District zoning ordinance, as referenced in Section C of the staff report, with the conditions that A, the applicant provides the required landscaping around the base of the sign, B, the applicant receives a variance from prohibition of signs in the right-of-way, and C, the sign is held back off of the edge of the sidewalk by at least 18 inches.
Okay, we have a motion by Bates, second by Tannenbaum, all in favor? Any opposed?
And then I also move to provide a recommendation of approval to the Board of Adjustment for a variance from the prohibition of signs in the right-of-way.
That was a Bates and Tannenbaum motion for a variance. All in favor? Any opposed? So, thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Good work. We have no other business except for a communications presentation. I'm excited to see is Rand Elliott, the birthday boy, here. Thank you for offering that up.
No, you can. Rand couldn't be here, so he sent his ugly brother. Most people that know me or have for a long time might have seen me in my hat before. Others are shocked and think I'm someone else. But thanks for hearing us today, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rand Elliott. Elliott & Associates Architects. Cody Postalka is the project architect on this. And we have an exciting project to share with you today that is very much in keeping with all the great things going on in downtown. And in particular, I want to make a comment that in our due diligence in the early moments of this development concept, we've spent significant time with Sarah and Lisa and others, and they have been absolutely fantastic. It makes the process go so much easier when you can go and talk to someone, sit down and say, are these good ideas or not good ideas? And so what we're wanting to share with you today is an overall concept about how we think this could happen. And when we go about doing projects like this, we call it a master plan or a concept, so that we're trying to say, what are the ramifications? What's the most we can do? What's the least we can do in a project like this? We're not trying to break all the rules. We're trying to adhere to it as much as we possibly can. At the same time, we have a client who has needs and requirements. And so that's really our goal today. So we're going to go through these with you. Most of you probably purchased marble or granite from Dean Young and his family. It's basically Classen is the north-south street. The street south of that is Main Street, and of course 21C is going on right there. It's a very unusual site because it was the original railroad turnaround, big curve right there, and we've had some interesting discussions about the survey situation there and all kinds of alignments and so forth, and those all seem to be worked out. They've been there since the, I think, since the early 60s. Next. This is the existing condition. This is basically looking northeast. In essence, we're kind of on Main Street, and you're looking up Classen. This is a building that's been added onto a number of times. We just recently learned that Dean said at one point when he could remember as a young person that it was a TV repair location. So that's an interesting observation about the whole thing. Our goal with this building and the concept is to make an architectural portrait, if you will, of who they are and what they do in an effort to support their business. But in addition to that, and maybe more importantly, we really want it to contribute to the current sort of attitude of downtown, that things are really happening. You saw some new things just this morning, and we're excited to be a part of that. So next. Here's a simple site plan. You can see the conditions. The long building to the kind of the right is their shop building. If you've ever been in and watched them cut marble or whatever, it's just an amazing thing. The building parallel to the left is the existing building where their offices and showroom is. Our proposal includes sort of a number of pieces and parts. In particular, we've done, I don't know, a dozen variations on access for automobiles and so forth. And so right now at the bottom, if you will, Cody, do you have a cursor? Yeah. Right down here is really the existing entry point. And we looked at a zillion different variations on what the entrance might be. We entertained the idea of it being different and so forth, and we've come back around to that being the main entrance primarily for long-term parking. The existing building is the cross-hatched part, which is the existing showroom and offices, and then this part on the south is an addition for the showroom for the building as well, so that he can show more product. And the pieces of the site plan that I think are of particularly important interest to everybody is the idea of getting exposure to the street. And because right along the south edge right here, there's going to be an apartment building that will literally consume or cover Dean's building up. And so his desire for visibility is really challenged here. And so we're really trying to do a couple of things that you'll see that make that easier and make it easier for you to find them and do business with them, but sort of integrating with the existing conditions. So the new entrance is going to be the corner of the new addition, right in here, and so it's a glass entrance and so forth along this condition. You'll notice that there's kind of a grassy island right there, and then to the north of that is the opportunity for 3 parallel parking spaces. All of us that have been here a long time know that this configuration of a curb and a planter or an area between Classen and the adjacent areas has been used in a number of occasions. The hope is, if Dean chooses to go this direction, would be to put some short-term parking there for his customers to jump out, come in, look at a piece of tile or something, bring a sample out, and leave. And so we have enough room to do 3 parking spaces. The challenging part is that on the north side, it's coming out of this little queue, if you will, and getting back onto First Street and getting back either on Classen or across the street. And so we've had great conversations with Lisa and Sarah Welch about what the ramifications of this is. This is all right-of-way, and we recognize that we would be building in a right-of-way. We recognize that we need permits and so forth and so on in order to be able to do that. On the north side, the grassy area in green that you're seeing represents a buffer, trying to be a good neighbor for what's going on, and Dean needs an access point. And so the new addition, if you will, to the building is on the east side. It would be set back roughly 20 feet from the existing property line for an overhead door and access. And one of the things that he wants to do is, as he remodels, is to use the north end of the building for a slab showroom. And so the nice thing is that he would roll a slab inside an unconditioned space and could show you a beautiful piece of marble or granite in that particular instance. And so it's set back in order to accommodate an overhead door. There's a little parking area right there, which is primarily service along those lines. We've had to keep the buildings 10 feet apart. You can kind of see a little area right through here that provides the fire requirement to be able to have separation there. So it's a very interesting kind of combination of new and existing and trying to make all of it work together. Next. This may seem very odd to you, but one of the things that we're hoping to do is that we know that there are important people that are going to be staying in this apartment, living in this apartment, and we all know that 21C has a great reputation for art and artist-related things. And we thought it would be really fun to look down on the roof and see a quote that we would paint on the roof that relates to marble. And we loved the idea, and so we ran across this guy named Michelangelo and thought it would be great to put a quote there. So if you're staying in this apartment, you're not quite expecting to see an important quote in history about marble. It kind of gives you a little bit of an insight into what they do. Next. Because it's an existing building and because the history of what they do goes back a long, long time, maybe 1,000 years. But marble has been used for many, many years, and statuary is the normal accepted white and creamy or gray veined marble that's accepted. And so our proposal is to imply the historic references to marble from Greece in those early years, things that were very important at that time. And so we're proposing to do a colonnade, which is to the right, that represents where the entrance is. And then you're seeing a column and a beam that connects all these visually to try to make a statement about the fact that they are in the marble business and to relate to the history of their business. Next. This is at ground level. The existing building, we're simply painting and trying to do very, very simple things. The marble pieces will be the unique features there. Next. There you see it. The colonnade represents the main entrance. The gateway to the right is where you would drive in if you're there for long periods of time. So there's some sense of drama, the use of traditional materials. We have on the beam across the top has the name of their company, and then this wonderful little marble cube at the ground level would be a representation for people who've not been there before to recognize where the entrance is, and you'll see that. Here it is. We've kind of ghosted in the existing apartment building. It will literally come all the way to the corner and literally wrap around. So Dean faces this notion of being somewhat hidden here, and we're really trying to make a nice, quiet, but visible statement to make sure people know where he is. Next. The YB obviously represents Young Brothers, and it's the granite block, and then you find yourself going in to the main showroom there. What's interesting about this is that the city requires, and I believe is absolutely appropriate in doing so, to have a sidewalk connection. If you've ever walked along Classen, it can be sort of a scary thing. And so our proposal has been to, what if the sidewalk actually engaged next to the building as opposed to being out on the street edge itself? And Dean's okay with that, and it's one of the things that we would like to propose. It allows people to walk along the edge of the building without feeling like they are endangered. Next. An interesting part of this building concept and putting it together is that it's really an industrial site, and we love the idea of taking a precious material like marble and putting it together with steel siding. And this is a higher grade siding than you would normally imagine having. But we love the idea that it's an industrial site, but yet they offer a premium product. Next. This is the parking courtyard, as you can see. Along the north side, existing buildings, Dean's request to set the building, the new addition back, which has elevator, stairs, some additional offices and so forth, is there. But we felt a desire and a need to make this relate to the street. So rather than having kind of a setback that might feel like a mouth with a tooth that's missing, we've created a screen wall that's consistent with it, and the idea of this architectural feature of this horizontal beam sort of suggests that it's a continuation of the original. Next. We are proposing a fence or a big gate right here that might be a security thing. The value of the panel that extends from the existing building out to represent where the entrance door is for the marble slab room actually gives us some protection from north wind, and we believe that's important. You can see that there's a little balcony on the top that would allow you to look into downtown and have a nice visual relationship to it. And there's a key point in this building where the view of the Devon Tower is the dominant feature. This is the proposal to do a big sliding gate and so forth. And again, it's being discussed, it's being talked about and so forth. We just wanted to share this idea with you in case there's some discussion you'd like to have. Next. What it looks like inside, you can see the slab doorway on the right, and then the small block cubic building, if you will, on the left is the offices and so forth. Next. That's it.
Okay, great. Anything else you'd like to add before you?
We're happy to, as I said, Betsy, this is all about what's the most we could do for this site to try to make the most use of every square foot and so forth here and now. And so we know that there are challenges in building the right-of-way. We know all those kinds of things. And as I said earlier, everybody in zoning has been very encouraging and thoughtful about this. So we're here to hear your reactions.
Okay. Any comments from the committee?
Great combination with the multifamily and the hotel. Yeah. Oh, my goodness gracious. I got a Marvel tenant. I got a Marvel tenant. It doesn't look like this at all. And I love the gates, so when they come pick it up, because at the end of the day, they got to cut them and dust and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's a fabulous deal. And
we thought that the connection between 121 and C is going to be with their 24-hour art gallery and stuff could be a really nice touch.
Beautiful. I enjoyed it. I like it.
Cool. Any other comments?
Yeah, I think it's a great project. You know, what you're doing on Classen to increase the scale without actually adding building, I think is a good gesture to the scale that we're looking for. If I could, I wouldn't, if we can, I'd like to talk through the street frontage.
Sure, of course.
At Classen, and
Why don't we go back to that? You want to look at a site plan, or you want to look at the three?
yeah, a site plan would be great.
Okay. Okay, there you go.
So you had mentioned some other properties on Classen that use this kind of entry sequence. Do you know any offhand?
Well, the 30th and Classen is a great example, and there are a number of them. It's one of those sorts of things that you've kind of lived with and driven by a million times but not paid much attention to it. And so they exist. And if you would like, we're happy to spot those and give you an address or something with each one of them. But in particular, there's one at 30th and Classen. But it happens pretty frequently along there. And one of the things that's unique about this location is that First Street is actually the position, strangely enough, where the buildings north of First could build all the way to the property line, to the absolute property line, which is at the curb of Classen. Here you couldn't do it, and it's a function of where the railroad easements were and so forth. And so we're trying really hard to maximize as much as we possibly can here.
Yes, I'd like to take a look at those other locations and just get a sense of how they function. When I look at this in plan, my gut is safety.
Sure.
And, at the speeds in which people drive along Classen, to think about someone in the right lane going from being on Classen to being in such a tight space so quickly concerns me regarding safety. Similarly, exiting that parking space and creating a curb cut onto First Street that's so close to the curb cut on Classen that there's a potential for an interaction there. Is there the potential to put the parking on First Street, on the south side of First Street?
The goal, let me mention two or three things that might be helpful as we've thought about this and talked about it ad nauseum. The idea of slowing down and coming into this site is no different in this curb cut situation than it is on the current curb cut situation. You're slowing down, you have the signal on in your car, you're going to come off the street, if you will, to park. So it's either parking in the south parking lot or coming off to do a parallel park. The green space or curb would make sure that you were buffered from Classen, so that was intentional and purposeful. The other thing that would be important to note is that we have considered the idea of it being right turn only as you come out of the little throat of the thing, because you can go around and possibly literally go around the block, if you will, in terms of being able to do that. So that's something that we have considered, because we too recognize that if First Street was a busy intersection, you might have potential challenges with someone trying to maneuver and that kind of thing along the way. This is not a highly traveled intersection, as you would kind of imagine from that standpoint. So all of those things have been a part of our thinking process in terms of being able to give him as much on-street visibility as we can. Distance, where I was going for a moment when you said, what about parking on First Street? Well, the answer is great. At the same time, we're trying to get as close to the front door as we possibly can. It's the 7-Eleven mentality. I'd like to park at the front door, go in, do my business, and come out. And so we're trying to accommodate that. We know that it's a challenge.
Anything else?
I guess the next question would be, what are your thoughts on landscaping, that potentially that curb and the rest of the frontage of the building?
I will mention that these days there are marvelous seasonal things like wildflowers and horsetail reeds and things like that that are really sort of maintenance-free materials that could be really beautiful. And so the green areas that we're talking about here, the thought would be either something that would add color to the landscape along Classen right there, or something that would be just architectural. And horsetail reeds are these beautiful, straight-up kinds of things. If you can imagine it being fully landscaped with that, could be stunningly beautiful. At the same time, if it were color, then you can imagine wildflowers or something like that being in the the idea. I think the notion is today is sort of irresponsible to think that everything has to be mowed and edged and all that sort of thing. And so, as odd as it may seem, the hope is that this would be a little bit of an island, if you will, in downtown. They are serving an important, I think, purpose in the community with 21C happening and some things. We're going to have an artistic crowd, I think, in this particular area. You can see on our drawings we were proposing horsetail reeds as a possibility there. And it's green all year round, and they can grow 3 and 4 feet tall, so it's pretty cool.
And just lastly, the one column that's in the parallel parking area, are there any concerns about hitting the column?
We have island around it and so forth.
Oh, so that would be a curb, that
Yes,
white?
it would be a curb.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
some people you might think that they would use that as a starting point, wouldn't you? But no, the idea is to protect it.
Well, I want to say, especially since my office is now less than a block from this, I'm very excited about this. Very excited for Young Brothers to give the acknowledgement that they have an important location, which is great. I did have an opportunity to go to San Francisco recently and spent some time with an architect named Chris Downey. And I would like you to take a look at your circulation, your sidewalks along Classen, for the safety of people. We're in a process called a Better Classen or a Better Boulevard, and it really encourages a lot of pedestrian and bicycle activity along there, and moving the sidewalk back, or the main sidewalk. I understand having the sidewalk back against the building, but moving the main sidewalk from the street to the building makes it a little bit less navigable. So I know that you have things to do on this, and you'll continue to work on it. So I'd like you to consider that. And this particular architect, Chris Downey, did a TED Talk. So I would recommend all of us to take a look at that, because it's part of our responsibility to create safe urban streets. His name is Chris Downey, and he's a blind architect. So.
And Betsy, we did consider very carefully this notion about whether the sidewalk is at the island or otherwise. And if you walk or bicycle along edges of main thoroughfares, it can be a scary place to be sometimes. And so it's a real interesting question about which is the right solution. And I'm not sure I know the answer to it. But we did investigate that, and we're happy to reconsider that.
Oh, and then there's one other thing. When we approved the apartments that are associated with the 21C, they go across Fred Jones, and I don't know what the access is from there.
We've not had the benefit of having any drawings from them at all. We know that they can't dead end First Street, so we assumed that there would be some outlet up there that would allow you to go around the block.
Yeah, ask Mr. Young, because that portion of Fred Jones, it was technically closed, but I think I know Young Brothers negotiated some continuance of access.
Because
out.
Young Brothers, their material dock and so forth is on the upper right-hand corner of this site, as they currently use Fred Jones for loading and unloading and so forth. So we're happy to look at that again if those documents are available.
Sure. Anyway, thanks for coming and showing this to us. I'm super excited.
Thank you. In terms of our next step, would it be your recommendation that we present as drawn with an alternative, like for the sidewalk or something like that? Or do you feel like that there are alterations that we need to do that would affect your decision to approve it or not?
I think Lisa would probably be the right person to ask that question.
Okay. So we would work with Lisa to say, what of these things should we put forward, if you will, for our official proposal?
Yeah. I think in terms of the quantity and quality, I think it's ready to submit. There are, and you guys have talked, we have talked, some of the transition areas of the sidewalk circulation aren't as documented, but that's an easy fix. You guys already technically submitted, right, for March?
No.
No, you didn't, okay.
We've not, but
So
there
we'll-
have been some changes and things
Okay.
like that. We're trying to be as accurate as possible. What we are,
Okay, so we can
the reason
work
I'm
over-
asking the question is to make sure that we get things that are there that are not going to be an allergic reaction to you guys if possible.
Right. To me, it's just improving upon some of these transitions and thinking through, but we can do that over the next month, and you can submit in March for April.
Thank you.
And
So I have I'm a little slow here, I'm not an architect, but going along Classen there, wouldn't you want a sidewalk a little further back like he's showing it than closer?
Yeah, I absolutely.
Maybe I'm missing.
No, I absolutely agree. I'm saying it's not clearly documented how you're getting around from the residences and how you're getting past to the next
Well, that
project,
Young
how you're
Brothers
connected.
corner, I mean, I
to
drive in there all the time, and people come around that corner there heading north, and, you know, I don't know how you can do it any differently with that entrance right there. I mean, you're...
I'm not saying it needs to be reconfigured. I'm saying where it touches the edges of other sites is not
You're talking about
documented.
like where you cross the street, like how the...
How you cross First Street, where you connect to,
Right.
and then, but real quick, I know you guys have had 1,000 conversations with traffic, and I believe they finally kind of bought off on how you're exiting onto First.
Well, I mean, we don't have anything official or that sort of thing. We're just trying to propose a solution that everybody can get comfortable with, or what the conditions might be. It would be like, if you said to us, right turn only out of that, then at least we can communicate to our client, are you willing to do this? If he comes back around and says, you know, it's not worth the hassle and so forth and so on, I'd rather let it be grass and landscape. We're just trying to understand what's the maximum possibilities, and then if they choose not to do some or all of it, then we pull back to make it something that is still acceptable and a good for this corner.
Because there's a regulation, there's a curb cut minimum separation distance from Classen to where this turns out on First, and I know it's been massaged. I mean, really trying to squeeze it in there. I think they've got it.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we try to find the documents for the apartment building at that corner, because we haven't had access to that, and see if we can't integrate, to Chuck's point, integrate into it the notion about where the sidewalks connect and all those kinds of things.
Well, and isn't that a public document? I mean, we have
yeah,
documents that were submitted to us.
Yes,
So,
yeah, I'll send you links.
Thank you.
and then just to address Chuck, even though it seems safer to pull it off the street, if the rest of the sidewalk along all of Classen is there and say you couldn't see or whatever, it's not as safe. And then all of a sudden you're crossing First Street way back off of the intersection. And will cars understand that? I'm just saying that. It was a fun experience for me to get to walk the streets of San Francisco with this guy.
I personally think that people that ride bicycles and walk need to get a license like people that drive cars, because if this were the jaywalking capital of the world, I'd say it is.
It is.
People need to learn how to be safe on bicycles and rollerblades and walking. And I don't know how many people are going to have to get killed before we figure that out. But I think there needs to be some kind of a community education program to help people understand that. If people, there'd be half the number of people in New York if they behaved like we do.
We do jaywalk. Well,
I'd like to add that I think the safest solution would be to put the parking on First Street and to minimize the interaction of cars coming onto the front of the site. And yes, right now the sidewalk is right on Classen, but and yes, we should pull it off of Classen and create a buffer zone, but not so far in a way that you start to lose those transitions from site to site.
I think the one thing you have to keep in mind is that this is a business trying to do business. And the further away the parking space is, the less interest people have in using it. And there still is a stigma about coming downtown and it being a scary place. And to be on First Street, sort of out of sight and so forth, would affect those people using the First Street side, in my opinion, versus being sort of near the front door. That's the only suggestion I would have.
So your project and all the other projects getting ready to happen right there are going to make it less of a scary place. So I'm excited about that.
Absolutely. I've, been in the Harding Building at 5th and Harrison for 22 years, and the worst thing that ever happened is that I overheard a man and wife having a loud discussion on the sidewalk below my window, but that's the scariest it's ever been. Well, I don't know who it was at the time, but
I can't believe you've been in that building for
been
22 years. That's crazy.
thank you so much for your attention.
Thank you.
Planning Department. We appreciate everything you do for our community.
What's that? Okay, well, it's my turn now.
There you go. Thanks for being here. Thanks for the presentation. So are there any administrative approvals that you would like to address, need us to check out or anything like that? There's a bunch of them.
There are a bunch of them. We looked at, so through January, which is a little over halfway through our fiscal year, and we exceeded where we were last year by dozens. I mean, it is crazy busy. Laura's done a great job of keeping up. Michael is working a lot of the AAs because there's so much stuff. What were we? It was like 116 cases or something through January from from our fiscal year is July 1st. So July 1st to the end of January was something like 116 cases. It's crazy.
Not yet, anyway.
I have a question. Are we getting any closer to having another member?
We are. There is a nominee on tomorrow's City Council agenda. It's Danielle Theriault. She's an architect. Used to work with Betsy at ADG. Now she's at another architect.
Yes! Yay!
And right. She is now at Beck Design Group. So hopefully she'll be approved and join us at the March meeting.
Okay. We have a long meeting? March 17th, okay. You won't be here?
Won't be.
Good deal. Good deal. Okay. That being said, Dick will be here next time. You got married when? Oh. I see. Okay. I am going to state that we are adjourned. Thanks very much.